Yep. So hi, this is Jon Sayles. This is another one of our episodes in Guitarists in the Classroom. Today we're talking to Christopher Perez, or Chris Perez, from Freedom High School in Florida. And he's got a very going program there, and he's got a bunch of videos on YouTube where you can watch him teach as well as hear his kids play and hear a little bit about him from the students, which is a terrific source. We'll start right in. So Chris, tell us a little bit about how you got started in music, your musical background, and then, did you play guitar in college? If not, how did you learn the instrument? We'll get into the program in the next questions.
Yeah, so I started my music journey in 1978, 1979, and I was in fifth grade, and I started in band, and saxophone was my first instrument. And then going through middle school and high school, eventually learned tenor saxophone and baritone saxophone. And then once I got into high school, I was flip-flopping between all three saxes, depending on the ensemble I was in, regardless if it was marching band or concert band or the jazz band. And then that was also when I started interest in wanting to learn percussion. And so it was, kind of learning things on my own. And it wasn't until I got into college that I kind of double majored in playing saxophone. And so I graduated from Western Illinois University.
Okay, nice place.
In Macomb, Illinois. We're the Marching Leathernecks. And I was a drum major for 2 seasons. And during that time, I studied saxophone and percussion simultaneously, which is difficult to do. You're trying to master one instrument and you're trying to do both.
It's hard.
But then also taking band class, because I wanted to be a band director. I had to learn all the woodwind instruments, all the brass instruments, and the string instruments.
Sure. Yeah.
And my only experience in guitar was in a general music class where we were given, among other things, we had one song that we had to learn on the guitar and a test. And so I remember learning a John Denver song.
Right.
And my
Country Roads.
fingers, my fingers felt like bricks.
Yeah.
Trying to play like a D chord to a G chord. I just struggled with it. And then I didn't play guitar after that. So there wasn't any guitar program at the school.
Oh, okay.
And also at the time, a lot of guitar programs in middle and high schools just did not exist.
Yeah.
And so fast forward, I graduated.
So what, you graduated in what, like 83, 84?
No, 94.
You graduated in 94. I get to call you a junior. Okay.
Yeah. Well, graduated in December 93, but I got my first job in 94. And teaching in Illinois. And I was a middle school band director in elementary school. And so I did that. And then my wife and I moved down to Orlando in 98. She's a teacher as well, and she wasn't able to find any work. And so we decided that Florida, there's a lot of schools being built, and they couldn't hire teachers fast enough. So we moved down in 98.
Still the case, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sorry.
So while I was here, moving to Orlando, I still taught different high schools and middle schools teaching band. And it wasn't until 2007 that I started teaching guitar. And that wasn't by choice or by design.
Interesting.
Yeah, some philosophical things and other things that I was kind of forced into teaching guitar, and I didn't like it. And I actually tried finding other places to teach, and no one was hiring me. And so I felt like I was stuck. And I didn't know I didn't know pedagogy. I didn't know curriculum. I didn't have a curriculum. Didn't know best practices. Just very, very frustrating. And so it wasn't until about 18 months in that I had a group of students in my Guitar 1 classes. And as frustrated as I was, I didn't take it out on the kids.
Big of you.
Yeah. I always try to be the better person. But I had a group of students in several of my Guitar 1 classes that knew that I cared about them as a person. and wanted them to grow as a person. Even though I wasn't really good at teaching guitar, I still didn't know what I was doing. And
Well,
so
just a quick question. So what were you doing in this first sort of turbulent year in? Just curious.
I tried using a couple different method books, but
Okay.
they weren't really good.
Mm-hmm.
And I was basically, just kind of, fishing out stuff, and I nothing was sequential, and I mean, just for that long, I barely was able to learn just part of the fretboard in first position.
Mm-hmm.
Forget about technique and everything else in musicality. Just trying to learn a fretboard. It's like kind of like when I was in college and I was trying to learn the
Piccolo.
positions on the
Yeah.
trombone slide.
Yeah. So that's good. Yeah. Or violin.
So that's
Yeah.
like that. Yeah. So I struggled with that, and then it was my students at that time, and there's about 25 of them or so that they told me that, we're getting to the end of the school year, like my second supposedly year of teaching guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And they said that they wanted to get better and they wanted me to be their teacher. And I said, well, I'm not that good of a teacher of guitar right now. I'm terrible. And then they said, well, we're terrible too, but we want you to teach us. They said this.
Mm-hmm.
My students said, let's do the journey together.
Mm-hmm. No, that's totally believable.
That was it.
Yeah, I found that that successful classroom teachers could stand up in front of the UN and basically lecture on something that you know nothing about and be riveting. And you've got that because you've been a successful classroom teacher for so long that you've got the persona, and the eye contact and the communications gifts and stuff like that. And that just comes. If you don't have that, you're not very long in the profession. Okay, so your current guitar program. Describe what levels you got. I mean, I saw the videos. Looked like one session with a lot of different class, junior, senior, etc., freshman, sophomore. Big guitar ensemble, like a guitar orchestra, and just talk about the program, etc. Before we get into specifics.
So the program I have right now
Fast forward.
I have fast forward. Yeah. So to today. I have 6 classes, so full-time guitar. I have 3 Guitar 1 classes, and then I have 3 ability-based guitar ensembles. And the ensembles that I have, my youngest group is Ponticello, which actually is a guitar technique of playing guitar. I have Tasto, which is my middle group, and then I have my guitar orchestra, which is my top group.
Right, I see. Okay. And is there a grade split out, or is it all just based on, ability?
It's based on ability. Guitar 1 is open to anyone who's never played guitar before.
Okay.
And grade, since we're high school, it's open to grade 9 through 12.
9 through 12. Okay.
And then in my guitar ensembles, in order to get into my ensembles, students have to audition to get in. But the audition is not so much to exclude students, but it's to find out their ability.
Yeah.
Because for example, my guitar orchestra students, on average, they've been playing 5 years or so, 4 or 5 years, at least. Some of them 6, and so their reading ability and processing ability on the fretboard is a lot higher than a student who's only been playing for 1 or 2 years.
Sure, of course. Yeah. How many total players do you have in your school? I mean, you said a full-time job. That's what happened to me when I started in 74. I was part-time. And then by the time it was 76, 77, I built the program up so that I was at the high school and full-time. It's great. I got to see kids 7 through 12. It was really pretty awesome. Sounds like you have the same kind of thing. How many total guitar students? I didn't have that many total. I might have had, well, actually, since junior high was general music, everybody was forced through that, like a funnel. They had to take it. So I must have had at least 100, 200 a year, but they dropped that after 9th grade, except for a select few. So you had that select few. How many do you have in the high school total, and what's the average number per class?
Presently, right now, we have about 2,650 students. And in the program right now, I have about 160.
That's good. That's really good. And what's the average number per class? I mean, so for the Pontes and the Tostos and the orchestra, what's the numbers for each?
My ensembles right now are averaging anywhere between 20 and 30 students
Mm-hmm.
in the ensembles. And then my Guitar One classes, I'm averaging between 20 to 25 students.
That's great. Do you ever do any really small ensembles, like 1-2 apart, quartets, trios, things like that?
In my Guitar One classes,
Mm-hmm.
and actually I'm going to be starting that in a couple of weeks because we just started basically like week 3.5. And so my students are pretty competent now on the top 3 strings, the treble strings for the classical guitar. And that's the instrument that we use primarily. We're going to start our bass strings in a couple of weeks. So there are some music that's out there by Doberman Editions and Diaz. They're from Canada, publishing house.
Oh, I think,
And so
other guys have said, Alan Hirsch talked about them. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's some easier ensembles that I will use, and I'll give it to my my Guitar One classes, and I'll break my class down where they choose. Okay, so this is a trio. You got to choose 2 other people that you're going to work
That's
with,
nice. Yeah.
and then you're going to put a trio together. And so they're breaking the room down a little bit. And so I what I'll do in class is I'll go from like pod to pod.
Yeah, it's very cool.
I break my room down to small pods.
Yeah, it's very
and
cool.
I have my students work on that.
Do
so I do that a few times a year.
Do you meet each day? I'm sorry, I wanted to just get some more definition about the whole program because it's really interesting. Do they meet every day, or is it every other day?
We meet every day.
All of your units, so 6 periods a day, 5 days a week.
Yes.
Okay, cool. What percentage would you say take lessons outside of school? Just an estimate.
Maybe 1%.
Wow. Okay. Very interesting. Okay. What styles of music do you introduce your kids to? All classical or jazz or what? Pop? Rock?
We basically cover mostly classical music. We'll cover things with world music and with rock and pop. Jazz a little bit. Jazz has never been one of my forte. Even in college when I was playing saxophone, I was geared more towards the classical side of things and contemporary side of things, not so much with jazz.
So you're a Donald Simpson guy.
Yeah.
I studied with him at Hart. He's brilliant. Yeah, as opposed to Coltrane. Okay. Anyway, so do you do everything from standard notation, or do they do tab, and do they do chord charts and things like that?
We do initially when I start my students, I get them reading rhythms and having them start learning the staff, the notes in the staff, and working on that. After a few weeks, like 2 or 3 weeks in, I'll introduce tablature, but I use it as a tool to help students read notated music. I don't use tab, exclusively just on its own. Anytime I incorporate tab, it's always with notated. I always have the split.
Yeah. I've seen those. Yeah. So it's a means to an end.
And the tab is there.
Yeah. It's very nice. So your kids play open string chords and bar chords eventually, and tablature. And do they use picks ever? And do you ever teach by ear, either call and response or by ear? Do they ever learn stuff by ear? Just curious.
We will use picks, especially when we're doing on pop music, or like I do a power chord unit with my Guitar One kids using amplifiers and electric guitars. And so they'll practice using a pick, playing and working on that technique. With scales that we work on, I will have my students play scales not only with combination of fingers with scales, but also I have them working with pick, down pick, and up pick.
Sure.
And just do alternate picking.
Sure, alternate picking, not economy picking. So I see that you got nails. Do all your kids have fingernails, or do some of them play without nails, or how does that work out?
I encourage all of my students to grow their nails out. With my guitar ensembles, especially my older students, especially in guitar orchestra, they will, all the guys have nails and the girls have nails too. And even when I tell my students that, when they're playing, the primary sound comes out of the nail when they're plucking the string. And they hear a difference with you using flesh versus using the fingernail as a pick.
Yeah.
they hear a difference. And a lot of my Guitar One students, they'll grow their nails out, and I'll actually work with them on how to file their nails properly, shaping their nails so that they're able to have it a certain way, because everyone's finger's different.
Oh, of course.
And so, yeah, how they like, angle their
fingers are so
nails
different, I
certain ways,
can't
so
use
when they're
nails.
plucking, they're able to play.
My ring finger's got like a camel shape to it, and I go fatak, fatak, fatak whenever it hits the string. So I just chop them all off, and I sound like a lute player now.
Yeah.
And also, so you don't have any wrestlers in your class or anybody who does sports, because wrestlers aren't allowed to have nails in high school, I don't think.
I do have students in sports. Any student that is in a contact type of sport, such as water polo or wrestling and things like that during in season, I have them try to, they have to cut their nails, but I try to have them grow as long as it can and without having to scratch.
So the referee,
that,
before the referee says you're out of here. Okay, I get it. That's really interesting. Very interesting. So how do you choose your repertoire? How do you obtain like new tunes, and how do you do that? I'm just curious.
When I choose repertoire, I think about the level of students that I have. And, since a lot of music is graded, just like in band, I have grade 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 level music. So the same way for a guitar. And so, I'm not going to give a Guitar One student a grade 3 or 4 level piece, because they can't process it. They don't know the fretboard. They know the rhythms. They don't have the experience to be able to play something as intricate as that. So when I choose music, I keep that in mind about their ability level. But also when I'm choosing new music, I'm, once a week or every couple of weeks, I will scour the internet, just looking on YouTube and seeing different ensembles and
interesting,
discovering what other like new music might be out that I might like to add to my library. One thing also is that I have actually, about once a year, I will have 1 or 2 composers that will email me new music that hasn't been published yet, and they would like to have, use my ensembles as a sounding board, and maybe even play it in a concert, and I'll try to record it just so they, like a premiere, just so that they have that.
Yeah, really good. So do you use a method? Do you have a method that that you swear by, or Aaron Shearer method, or anything else for your
I've
courses?
used the First Year Guitar Hot Method by Nancy Marsters for many years. Unfortunately, our school is a heavy populated free and reduced lunch, where like 70%, 60 to 70% of our students have a financial burden of some kind. And so for me to have my students pay money for a book as an expense, a lot of them can't afford it.
So that brings me back to the guitars thing. So yeah, so you're saying you buy that for them. Do they own their own guitars, or do the school provides all the guitars?
I have a class set, actually several class sets of classical guitars. I actually have a class set for my ensembles, and I have a class set for my beginners. And also I have a class set of acoustic guitars that I acquired a few years ago. And I also have several like bass guitars, acoustic guitars, acoustic basses, and regular basses, and also about 5, I think, or 6 electric guitars.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. And how did you get that? I mean, was it budgeted? Do you have any kind of budget? In my school system, I had 0 budget. The band got everything, and whatever was left over, the chorus got. I got nothing any year. So how did you have budget for your guitar program? I mean, if you don't want to say, you don't have to say.
Well, no, it's just there was a time when, before COVID, that the district handed out, budgets and monies to the schools, but it was the principal's discretion in how the funds were dispersed to the departments. And so for our performing arts, we have, we got band, chorus, orchestra, guitar, piano, dance, theater. So we have all these different components that
Sure.
students are able to join for the performing arts. And so our department chair will take all the money, and even though it's like most of it's supposed to be earmarked towards other programs and very little for guitar or piano, he actually will, like, take some from
Hmm.
different components so that there's a fairly equal disbursement of
That's good.
money
That's
that
really
goes
good.
around. But what I do is that aside from budget that we get, I also have class fees or fair share
Oh, I
that my
see.
students have to pay
Okay.
in order to keep our program going. Because
Interesting.
um, budget-wise, it takes about each year between $7,000 to $10,000 to properly run my program.
Hmm.
And the budget that the district gives us doesn't barely cover it at all.
Hmm.
And so the money that the students bring in help cover, keeping everything, keeping the guitars in playable condition, and for repairs or replacement as need be. We replace strings every quarter or before performance. So that's,
Hmm.
4 or 5 times a year. And also I frequently bring in artists
Hmm.
from around the world or
Hmm.
from Central Florida, close by, that work with us, and we do concert performances with.
And the concerts are charged. So you do public performances and stuff like that and recordings and such too? I'm just curious.
We don't charge for performances.
Okay. Oh, you
The
don't?
parents are the families are already paying for
Yeah, for the
their
class
students
itself.
to,
Yeah.
for the class itself.
Yeah.
So we're not going to double dip and do that. That's
Okay.
something that in performing arts we don't do.
Hmm.
The only time that we charge is theater, drama, when they're doing a play, or if they're doing a musical, they have to buy the rights to do the play
Oh,
or
sure. Right.
musical.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have to pay money to bring that back
Hmm.
to pay for it. And then
Just to,
also,
go ahead.
no, I
Sorry.
was going to say this also, every December, and we've done this since the school opened, we have a Prism Concert, which is our holiday
Oh,
concert, and the whole department's involved. So we have, um, across our nine programs, we have usually 30 to 35 ensembles that play, big and small. And we charge now families to have a seat so they can attend the concert. But the money that we receive, we give it back to the school. And there's a SAFE program that helps our most needy students, which
hmm.
are basically homeless students.
Hmm.
And so through that, over the years, we've raised close to $60,000
Jeez, that's
that we
great.
gave back, giving back to the community. We give it back to the schools. So
That's
we
really
don't keep
cool.
it. It goes back to help people who are more needy than we
Yeah,
are.
sure. It's really cool. Alan Hirsch talked about, because he had, because in his school, he was a one-man band, no pun intended. He did chorus and guitar. He had a situation where he would have guitarists back up his chorus instead of a piano. You ever do things like, multi-discipline things like that? It was kind of cool. I'd never thought of doing that.
Not as frequently as we would like.
Hmm.
The last time we did something like that was last school year, where we have a Masterworks concert, which is primarily band, chorus, and orchestra that perform. But last year they wanted to do an Americana theme,
Hmm.
and so they asked if guitar could be involved, and said, yeah, we'd love to. Just give us
Hmm.
music, and what can we
Yeah.
do? So one of the choirs, they had a song, songs from Appalachia.
Hmm.
And so my kids were playing mandolin and
Hmm.
banjo and acoustic guitar
Hmm.
as an accompaniment with fiddle
Yeah, great.
accompanying the
Yeah,
choir. So we had that.
great.
And then there was another song that we worked on, which is one of the closing pieces of music for the illuminations that used to be the old fireworks show at Epcot.
Okay.
And so we performed that "We Go On" is a song. It's like one of
Hmm.
the last songs for the
Hmm.
fireworks show before they retired it, and they have a
Hmm.
new fireworks show now.
It's cool.
So we learned that. We learned that song, I think, in like in a day. Kids learned it really fast. But it was
I
nice to
can
be able
imagine.
to it was nice to be able to be integrated with that venue that we haven't done before. And so we're hoping that we'll be able to do that again this year.
Um, I'd like to talk more about it. We're at past the, as my shrink says, we're past our time up. So what kinds of resources did you not have when you started off, or do you not have now that would make your job easier? So just two quick questions. The first one is like, what are you lacking, or what could you use if the world provided it? That would be real helpful.
What would really help was something that I'm still trying to work on. I've had several grants that I didn't get yet. I'm still trying to knock on different doors.
Mm-hmm.
Is for my guitar ensembles, they're advanced players, and it's very difficult for them to play the level of music that we have on the guitars that we have currently. They need solid top guitars, and they need something that's more professionally made and more handmade. That it's like a beginner. They don't know any better, but when you get advanced, you're working on an instrument that you're fighting against because it doesn't do what you want it to do. You want to further your technique, and the instrument's holding you back. And so I would love to have a class set of professional luthier guitars that are at least solid top, because everything I have right now is laminate. I do have a set of solid top guitars that we made a purchase, which are Kenny Hill Player Series guitars, but I only have 10 of them. And that's not enough for all my ensembles to share. And so that's something that, I'm still trying to work on, and, just trying to fish for other grants that will support us. But I'm finding that a lot of grants, they prefer to take a big pool of money and give it to a lot of people versus have this big pool of money and giving it to me.
Have you thought about going straight to Cordoba and places like that? Just for the marketing and the write-off?
I have, and unfortunately, they have not been too receptive.
Okay.
Yeah.
You might check with Bill Swick about that.
I have.
Oh, you have? Okay, sorry. Okay.
I have.
Last question then. Do you have any, let me see if I can get this phrased right. Do you have any specific advice, in summary? What would you say to a first-year guitar teacher, in hindsight? What would you do over again, do differently? And what would you tell them if you had like 10 minutes of their time? Or 25 words or less?
The biggest thing is it could be a lot of fun teaching students guitar, and it could be very, very enjoyable. Even if you don't know people, or even if you don't know the guitar well enough that you're able to really teach it. What I did is that once I took teaching guitar seriously, I constantly had artists and college professors in my room, showing kids how to play and how to do things properly. But then every single time that I had someone in, I was like a sponge. And so the only reason why I got better was I surrounded myself with people who were better than I was and who knew more than me, but also were supportive enough that they were able to answer any questions that I had and help me get better with technique and knowing the fretboard and knowing the pedagogical things and knowing, finding out what literature's out there and just combining all these things together so that, you could be the best teacher that you can be for your students. That's the biggest thing.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. It was really a great session today. Appreciate it.
Stop right there. Okay. Dynamic, is that good? Yeah. This is much better. But now we sacrifice dynamics for something else.